evening, and welcome to Socrates Garrett Live. We're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi. The We Believe Broadcast Network, African American owned and operated from right here in Jackson, Mississippi. You know, we're more than a page. We're a network where you can find some of the best content that you ever wanted to view, whether it has to do with sports or gospel or politics or the legislative process, or just people that are giving their hearts intelligence in terms of the things they've been able to do in their lifespan. So we want you to join us. Call us at 800-492-5186. And if you're watching us on YouTube, we want you to go to We Believe Digital Podcast and join our shows on YouTube. If you're watching us on Facebook, then join us there at We Believe Podcast. Check out all of our reels and our clips that are over on our Instagram account as well as TikTok. We're being seen in over 139 countries all over the world. Our network is growing each and every day. Our subscriber base is growing, and we want you to continue to subscribe to our channel, both on Facebook and YouTube. On Facebook, send us stars. We need your support and your help. We're the only African-American-owned broadcast network in the state of Mississippi, and probably one of 5 in the entire Southeast. And so we got a lot of work to do. We got to get the information out there in a way that others cannot or dare not do. And we do that because we're committed to this struggle of economic parity within the African American community. Now, tonight we're going to talk about economic parity a little bit, and we're going to talk about how this government is structured and how this thing works and why it works for some and not for others. So we first have to understand our government. We have to understand how it functions. And so, you know, in Washington, D.C., you have approximately 350 people that are making laws and controlling and ruling the entire country of some 400 million. Now think about the ratio there, 350 to 400 million. That's not real good representation. That's not a way to get the actual feelings and the understanding and the needs of the community up to our legislators that do a good job. So we got some issues with that. And so that same dynamic continues regardless to where you go. If you come down to the state level, you're going to have approximately 200 people making all of the laws for a state like Mississippi with 3.5 million people. So now we got 200 making the laws and ruling over 3 million. In the federal government, even worse, you got 350 or so over 400 million. And so these dynamics are difficult for the people in the middle class and those that are underserved that get their voices heard. It's just not enough mics to get that done. And then, you know, we continue down even to our city level with our government there. Our government here in the city of Jackson is ruled by 7 council people and 1 mayor. So that's 8 people that are presiding over 180,000 people in our city. The relationship and the ratios are not very good. But then you break it all the way down to the family. Now, normally we would love to have a two-parent family where you have 2 people there that are actually trying to provide the economic needs of the family and the educational needs, the spiritual, the medical needs. Normally, it would be desirable to have 2 people there. So on the average size of a family today is about 4 in the African American community. Now, it's a long ways below what it was when I was a boy. The average size of the family back in the 50s and 60s was 8 to 10. You know, some families had 20 children in them. But the reason for those large families were that they were to participate in bringing economics into the environment. We had large farms. So you needed a lot of children because you needed free labor. Wasn't exactly free, because you had to feed and clothe, and you had to provide for all of the medical care and the nursing and the education and the encouragement. It wasn't exactly free, but you had to have large families if you were going to farm in those days. Now, that was before automation. That was before these cotton pickers and all of that. It was before tractors were used in a big way. And so, we had to do things manually. And so some say those were the good old days. They were hard, they were tough, and they were taxing in any way that you want to imagine. Because the routine of that day would be that at 5 a.m. in the morning, you would be up and you would be getting ready not to go to school, not getting dressed, not to go to the place where you were going to learn and study in an air-conditioned environment. You were getting dressed to go to the farm. At 5:30 in the morning when the sun comes up, you would be standing in the fields on the farm. And you would work there on that farm until about 7 o'clock. So you got 5:30, you got 6:30, you got a good hour and a half worth of work that you can do before 7 o'clock. Now, what happens at 7 o'clock? At 7 o'clock, you rush back to the house to try to get cleaned up and try to get dressed to go to school, grab a bite to eat at the same time, and be out at the bus stop about 7:45. Then hopefully the bus would come and pick you up and you would be off to school. So that's a typical day that we were having back in those days when we had these large families. We don't have that anymore. But now we were talking about elections, and let's get back there. Elections, both on the federal, the state, and the local side. Let's take the federal government, for example. We have a tremendous contest that's brewing right now between former President Donald J. Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, there are a lot of people that indicate that Trump's gaining ground, gaining some momentum in this contest, when he clearly was devastated when Joe Biden decided to step out of the race and Vice President Harris stepped in. And she was leading by several points in most of the key areas, including the so-called swing states. The race seems to have tightened up a bit. And you can tell by the advertisement that's going on now, you can tell by the nature of it. Normally when we see politicians that are running behind in any given elected position or contest, the advertisement will be more negative toward the opposing candidate. So we'll see a lot of commercials now that are talking about the negativity of the campaign person they're running against. If you're running out front, if the polls show you that your numbers are good, then you don't have to worry about that as much, and then you will see more family-friendly commercials that's being run. So right now we're seeing a lot of national commercials from both sides, which means that they're both afraid. They both understand that this is going to be an extremely tight race, and it's going to be one difficult to call on election day. This will probably not get called for sometimes several days later after the election. We always remember the race back with Al Gore and the Bush campaign where we had these hanging chads. And the race was so close it had to be called eventually by the Supreme Court. This is one of these contests that we think are going to go down to the wire. It's going to be a real nail-biter. To the extent that Vice President Harris is able to bring out the voters that traditionally have had voter apathy and didn't show at the polls, and that's more on the Democratic side than any other platform. To the extent that she's able to get the vote out, then her chances are improved. And so you'll see a lot of campaigns directed at specific target groups. Now, one of these groups that we're currently paying a lot of attention to is the African American male. For some reason, it appears that the African American male is withholding their support greater than they have in the past. And there's got to be some logical explanation for that, and we're going to deal with that in a moment. So on the federal side, look for a nail biter there to be called several days after the election between Vice President Harris and former President Trump. Now, on the state side, this is an off year for us in Mississippi. We do not have a governor's race that's taking place during this election cycle. So we don't have all of the traditional campaigns and advertisements that's going on for state positions. Now, we do have some members in the legislature that are running, that those positions are there, and we have judges that are running, and the county and municipal judges are on the ballot, and we'll see those things being played out in a meaningful way. There's a tremendous race going on now for the county judge position. Newcomer to the race, Yemeni King, is making a bid to unseat Brittany, who is the current county judge. That's an interesting race. Two African Americans, both extremely intelligent, both qualified, but some significant difference will appear there. Yemeni seems to have the footprint in the community, having lived in the Georgetown area, and his office is there on Martin Luther King. And the work that he's doing there seems to indicate that he is grounded in that particular community. And yet, Councilman Stokes, is yet to decide who he is supporting in that race. And his wife was the first African American to hold that position. So we're looking for some fireworks in that race in the next couple of days. On the local level, we don't have anybody on the ballot for November the 5th. But we do have fireworks going on in our city because next year is the election cycle for the municipal leaders in our city. Now, those races are going to be heating up tremendously here in the next coming months. That primary is probably around April to decide the Democratic nominee for mayor of the great city of Jackson. And so normally if you win the Democratic nomination, we won't have a Republican opponent. Now, nor will you have an independent opponent. So it'll be a battle between the top two vote getters in the Democratic Party, and that'll take place second quarter 2025. Now, let's back up a minute and talk about this black male issue and what is going on with him and why is he reluctant to offer his support to any candidate at the present time. You see, there continues to be a great deal of suffering and anguish that's going on in the African American community, especially with the black male. He has been systematically removed out of the community over the years, and he has not been systematically reinstalled. So he finds himself in a position where he has unemployment of somewhere in the 40 percentile range in African American youth. You will find that poverty reigns supreme in the African American youth, and it breeds to crime, and it breeds to all other undesirable things. Crime, stealing, carjacking, murder, all of those things have a social impact to them that are not dealt with in the criminal justice system. Now, all of us out here that look down upon those that are committing crimes, I want to ask you a couple questions. One, are you capable of committing a crime? And the answer for that would probably be yes, since Abe was capable of killing his brother Cain, and there wasn't but two of them on the whole planet. So everybody is capable of committing a crime. Then two is, what would it take to cause you to do so? Now, more than likely than any other reason, it would be the lack of your ability to defend your family, to support your family, to be the breadwinner and the protector that a man is supposed to be, his inability to function as a man because he has been systematically removed causes him today to have voter apathy. And a great deal of that is going on now. He continues to be under assault, and you have to look into things and see things clear as to what's going on in our country. Now, the African-American male was systematically removed out of the family after the Watts riots in California. Policy was put in place that said that he cannot be in the house if a woman was going to receive any kind of subsidy from the federal government. The man could not be in the place. Once again, we further pushing him out. Then we created policies that for drug addiction, harsh sentences for crack cocaine and no sentence at all for cocaine. And the unfair judicial system that was taking place, which removed the black male again out of his community and put him into jail. And so Mississippi has more people incarcerated on a per capita basis than any third world country. And that is just terribly unfair, and it is causing devastation in our community. You see, when you remove the black male out of the family, you lose all of the discipline and you lose the structure and the order, especially for children. Now, it used to be for the mate as well, but we've elevated the female to a point now where she is now head of the household. She's now suffering from heart attacks and strokes. She's smoking more. She's working harder. She's doing all of those things that traditionally she didn't have to do. And it's causing a further breakdown. So our music chips in and it puts out music with things like, there will be no romance without finance. I can do bad all by myself. All of those things are designed to further push down and relegate the black male to a position of totally unimportance, being irrelevant. And then we further see now today, and this is something that's bothering me a great deal, that when I'm watching movies these days, you got to get to this from a subliminal message that's being sent. When I'm watching movies these days now, I am seeing more love scenes between African-American males on TV than I've ever seen in my life. It is as if we're saying that this is a normal function, a normal way of life in our community, and it is not. It is saying to our children that it is okay to be of that persuasion and be publicly displayed all over our TVs. African-American males now more than any other group are being shown and displayed in that light. Check it out. And so when we continue to do that, we continue to break down the structure and the backbone and the function of the African-American male. Now, why is that important? Well, if you kill or destroy the male of any species, the species will die. It will become extinct. You will eradicate it. And so what is happening now from all of this bad policy and the external forces that are pushing on the African-American male to push his head further down, then we ask ourselves, why is he not voting? Why is he not showing more support. It's not voter apathy. It's passive aggressiveness. He just does not see a way out or where he currently is. And unless we begin to rally around our men and bring them to a point of understanding and enlightenment and show some appreciation and reestablish him in his rightful place as the way that God created it, unless we put it back that way, then he will continue to slide, become less responsible. And our children will continue to be fatherless, and they will continue to be without the discipline that was necessary to raise a boy. You see, as a boy, when my father walked in the room, and there were 4 of us, he walked in the room and he said, "Boy, do this." Now, all 4 of us were sitting there, but we knew exactly which boy he meant at that time. Just by the sound of his voice, we were that keen into his expressions and his look, and knowing exactly that we had to move immediately to get that done, because he instilled that discipline in us. And we didn't get to talk back to our mothers, or we didn't get to talk ugly to our sisters. We couldn't call them whores and bitches and all that kind of stuff. That was taboo. And so we've just continued to allow this breakdown to occur to a point where the African-American male has been relegated to a position of totally irrelevance. Now, we're not going to try and cover everything here today. We're going to try to come back to you as often as we possibly can, hopefully daily, here in this broadcast network, as we bring other people in other positions and other attitudes and philosophies into our city. I hope to be able to show how important diversity is in our community and how important it is that we stop the brain drain in our community, and especially in Mississippi, where our children are leaving right out of college because they see no way to make a living here and live the quality of life that others enjoy in other places. So we got a lot of work to do. But you know, it bothers me. I was speaking to a young African American last night. We were talking about the conditions in our city and in our country. And he said to me that the only hope for Jackson, Mississippi was gentrification. And I thought about that for a moment, because this is a 45, 50-year-old African American male. And I thought about that and I said, well, that is the generation that has to hold the line. I said, my generation, you know, it's old and no longer in the decision-making positions. So it's that 45 and 50-year-old out there that's got to hold the line. And if that group says that the best thing that could happen to us is gentrification, which is symbolic of saying that we need to be under the white man's control, then I too will start to lose hope. If our children throw in the towel, if our children don't see the value and the need to have strong African Americans in leadership positions and making decisions, then I too will become apathetic. And I too will seek a way to confide in the next life, the spiritual revolution that goes on for African Americans who believe that their reward is in heaven as opposed to their reward being here on earth at this day and time. And I understand that when life is hard, when things are rough and you don't have no way out, then you, as a Christian, and most African Americans are, then we say that Jesus will fix it. Well, you know, he will fix it in the next life. And so if that is the case, then there is no reason for me to fight and scream and claw and try to make things better here if I have a way out. We only are going to do the things that's necessary when the struggle is so great that we have to come to the conclusion that I am the only hope, that I have the abilities and the skills to make a difference. I'm going to make a change, and I'm not waiting on Jesus. That I got to get up and get this done right now, and that I can do it. And the only way I'm going to feel that way is that I have a class, a group, a race of people who are supporting me and encouraging me to continue the good fight. If they start to tell me that the only solution is gentrification, then we become a hopeless society that we are eagerly and obediently marching our way back to the plantation. And once we're there, all our troubles and our need to be productive will be dictated by someone else. Now, this has been Socrates Garrett Live on this Thursday in 2024. I don't know today's date. I guess it's October 31st, the last day of the month. We look forward to coming back in your homes, in your living rooms, in your mindset on days to come. I want everybody out there to stay safe and have a good evening. Good night.